I am Deb Coviello, the Drop-In CEO, and I am thankful you've joined us for another episode where week after week I bring these amazing guests on the show who share insights about business, about leadership, and sometimes along the way they say the darndest things and they inspire you. And just know that we do this podcast, we bring these resources to you because I just want to be able to support and partner the C-suite leader to navigate challenges with confidence. And today I am thrilled to have on Amber Shepard, who is the Strategic Alliances business partner at Northeast Florida Economic Development Corporation. And as a local business owner and global consultant with a dynamic career, in business development, customer service, and operations across multiple industries. She brings a wealth of knowledge and innovative strategies to her role. And having nearly 15 years' experience in workforce development, uh, in her career services showcases her extensive expertise in aligning educational outcomes with labor market needs. And her experience enhances her ability to support workforce initiatives, prompting regional economic growth through skilled workforce development. It's my pleasure to welcome you onto the show, Amber.
Thank you, Deb. I really appreciate the opportunity. I'm looking forward to our conversation today and hope to bring some inspiration to your listeners.
So, and you will. And I know you will because of the discovery conversation that we have already had. And just by my listeners, workforce development, Deb, you have never talked about that. You have never brought anybody onto the show. But honestly, as we got to know each other, I'm thinking about the CEOs, presidents, founders of companies that are looking for a different outcome, a different market. They're looking for expansion, that they might need a partner or resources in the possibilities of maybe going to a different region, a different state. And then once you get there, what kind of support system might you need? And in comes Amber. So that's why I wanted to bring her on to the show. So, Amber, tell us a little bit more about you and your story and how you got to the work that you're doing now.
Sure. So, I have come up professionally and gained this understanding that our workforce, our employees, are the greatest asset that any organization can have. And truth be told, they really have the capability to make or break an organization. I come from very humble beginnings in rural Florida. I literally grew up on a dirt road out in the middle of nowhere and progressed through my career to providing global uh, business executive management consulting. And so I believe that there is a lot that I have gleaned from my experience that I can pour into CEOs and COOs, CFOs to help guide them strategically in growing and expanding their business. So I grew up, like I said, in rural Florida and pursued education through our local state community college, secured an associate's degree, and did all of the grunt work, so to speak, that it takes to become a professional, and secured employment as a career services advisor for a local for-profit technical college. And in that organization, it was my responsibility to help graduates identify and understand their key skills and abilities and learn how to present those appropriately to potential employers. The other side of that role was also building relationships with local employers and understanding their needs, understanding the deficits that they were getting from the local labor market, and then kind of working from both ends of the candle to fill the gap and find that ideal candidate. I was so successful in the role that I was able to exceed regulatory industry standards. So, in for profit education, the federal government requires 70% placement of all graduates, and that is across each program. We consistently exceeded that 70% and oftentimes went over 80 and closer to 85%, especially depending on the program. And my experience in that I worked in that role, transferred over into another college and was the director of career services there. I built curriculum for that college to help them guide their students even after my departure. And, I found that um, there is a huge need in organizations as a whole to understand their existing workforce and how that aligns with their culture, where those deficits may be, and how to attract the right talent that will create the culture that they desire. Because I'm sure if any of us have come up working in hospitality industry, we've seen the challenges of culture, and hospitality really shows the culture dynamic and how that impacts the workforce. Right? We all have probably had that experience of working in that toxic work environment. And we can identify solid employees to help us avoid those pitfalls and to build that greater workforce that will then teach our employees to be our marketing agents for us, right? Nothing sells a business better than having a solid employee who loves their organization and loves to sing about the good work that that organization is doing. And so, progressing from there, I recognized that I had reached the pinnacle of my career and started looking for additional opportunities and had moved into technology and building opportunities in another local non for profit organization. And then COVID hit. When COVID hit, that gave me a whirlwind, and then that launched me into unexpectedly global executive management consulting, where I had partnered with an organization in California, and we worked together to provide strategic analysis, market analysis, and go to market strategies for businesses seeking to localize within the United States. And then from there, that opened the door for the work that I'm doing now in Florida. Right now, centered on and focusing on Bradford County, Florida, helping them to develop a strategic plan for economic development, attracting innovation and opportunities to the community.
That is so, so interesting. So we're going to go in many different directions, but thank you for that. But I guess one of the things is I'd like to kind of go back to more origin story. You went through, had some jobs in education, you help with placement. Um, there has to be something more to you as a person that kind of gravitates towards humans and their gifts, identifying them, elevating them, and then how can you help them project it such that the ideal opportunity or business is attracted to them? Is there something more in your DNA preceding even education or your first roles?
Sure, I blame it on my mother. My she was the catalyst in my life. So a backstory, like as I mentioned, I come from humble beginnings. My family, I would say, was poverty stricken when I was growing up. My mother was a single mother, and she worked 80 hours a week at the local convenience store to provide for our family. And her her biggest focus in my life while I was growing up was education. She taught me how to read at the age of 3. Before I ever even made it into preschool, I was reading. I was looking up tornadoes in the encyclopedia. And that stuck with me through my entire life and has actually been a catalyst for me because what my mother would tell me is that nobody education is so important, Amber. You have to read and communicate well because those are things that nobody can ever take from you.
Mic drop
And
moment.
then yes, and as I progressed in my career and the opportunity that I received to come into a new environment in education, as a career services advisor, that ignited a passion in me because I recognized that there were people that were similar to me that didn't have that level of support in their life. And I had the opportunity to become that level of support for them. And so I found myself continually working to motivate and I didn't understand it at the time as transformational leadership. And to be honest, in career service, you are not a formal leader. You are an informal leader. You have to find a way to inspire and motivate change within these individuals so that they choose it for themselves. I couldn't force somebody to go on a job interview. I couldn't force them to write their resume properly. I couldn't force them to invest the time and energy that it took to sit in front of me and let me critique you and make yourself vulnerable to me so that I can share how we can improve. I had to inspire them to receive it. And what I found is a lot of these individuals, they suffered a lot of times from toxicity in the home. They didn't have that upbringing, those individuals in their home to believe in them and to provide them with the confidence. And that's what they needed from me, was that person that said, you know what, I'm going to help you grow and achieve your next level. So even way back when Next Level Consulting, my own personal brand, was being developed, and it's just a passion inside of me to help others achieve their next level. And I never want to be the smartest person in the room, and I will never claim to be. There is a lot that I don't know, but I'm curious and I'm an investigator and I'm an analyzer, right? So like, you bring those components together, and I feel like there's nothing that can't be identified, and no challenge that we cannot identify a solution to, that we can't work towards. So
So I'm smiling here for those of you who will eventually watch this on the video version of this podcast. I've been smiling here because I'll tell you, if I had the opportunity and the role, I would say you're hired. Because you exude the DNA of what I represent and what I believe. When you talk about you wanted to be there to provide that support for people that didn't have that coming up through their life, that's the same thing what I stand for. It is about helping that C-suite leader who gets to a place that they're stuck, the playbook is not working. Let me be your guide. Let me be your support system to help you to get to a better place, because you have gifts. And like you recognize their gifts. How can you be the best support? And the second thing you said, which again sung to my heart, was about inspiration, which is different. And I'll use the two words, influence and inspiration. And influence is like a coach. You can give them the 5-step approach and go forth and execute, unless if they don't have the heart, and if it just doesn't come from inside to permanently reframe their thinking and their behaviors. Inspiration is you making the decision on what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. So when you talk about, when you interact with others, how can you help inspire them? That's exactly what this interview is, and this podcast is all about. So I really appreciate that, but I got another question. Again, what was it about you and your approach as you were being that career service support person for graduates? You say the numbers where we want 70% placement, and I'm sure there's a myriad of people around you that contributed, but what was it then that helped get them to 85 or plus placement in your organization? Because I think employers, companies should listen to this to think about, one, not only how do they prepare talent for coming in, but even the talent within, how to be able to position themselves in the best way. So tell me a little bit about your secret sauce between the standard and what you actually achieved.
So, working in for-profit technical education career services, I had multiple customer verticals, right? I had the external customers who were the employers. And then I had two separate types of customers internally. I had my graduates who had come to the organization, come to the school because they were looking for an opportunity of change. And then I also had the staff, right? And within education, and I'm sure many people experience this even outside of education, oftentimes there's information silos, and education is no different. There's departmental silos. And so, one of the first things that I had to overcome was those departmental silos and bring the organization together as a whole to say, you know what? Yes, you are the program director. Yes, you are the instructor. Yes, you are the dean of these programs. And you have a responsibility to help this program. However, please understand that my responsibility is for all students in this organization. And so my hope and desire is that we can come together, be on the same page, create opportunities for these students. And in order for us to do that, we have to be in alignment. And so that began the process of building that internal playbook so that we were all essentially on the same sheet of music, right? Essentially, we had to sit down and say, what are our standards for our students that we're going to send out into the community? And we had to create a set of professional standards that the instructors had to adhere by, and they also had to enforce with our graduates. So, for example, in the medical industry, which is where a lot of our students would come from, long fingernails are not acceptable. A plethora of facial piercings not acceptable a lot of times in these environments. A professional presentation, and so number one, we had to set that standard. Then we had to get everybody to buy into that standard. And so one of the things that I did was I created a resume template, and there was, oh my goodness, a lot of kickback on this. Oh, well, everybody's resumes look the same. And I could understand that perspective internally because these individuals were used to securing employment for themselves, right? They weren't necessarily used to working with 1,500 local employers in the market space who are also simultaneously looking at 100 to 200 resumes. And so I had a focus group meeting with multiple employers and created an internal advisory panel for myself and talked with them about how do you feel about templatized resumes. And at first there was a little pushback, but then when I explained to them, you know, on the whole, understand that we are an education institution. And so our resumes are not going to look exactly like the resumes that you're getting from outside, from individual applicants. However, please know that the template will allow you to more easily compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges so that you know exactly what you're looking for, right? Because some people will come with a chronological resume, some people will come with, more experiential resume. And so that oftentimes left employers feeling flustered and frustrated because they had no metrics by which to compare their applicants. You have to like analyze and synthesize that information, then do your evaluation and hope you got it right and that you didn't miss anything. And so this process, it really worked to create a partnership between the employers, the college, and then the graduates, because the employers recognized that we were creating a standard of excellence, of academic excellence. So they were less concerned about getting graduates that weren't the quality of employee that they were needing. And the school recognized, oh, wow, now we're seeing employers where we have had difficulty in the past getting employers to partner with us because of those concerns. Now we're seeing more natural buy in. And because there's this air of success and partnership between the college and the employers, the students started recognizing, oh, my classmate just got hired and they did these things and they conform to this standard. So you know what? Now I recognize I need to conform. And from there, that led us to creating a wall of success in our campus where we would have photos of graduates who were hired, and we would post those photos. We would say who they were employed by. And then that in turn created opportunity for additional revenue for our admissions team as they're bringing recruits in through the campus and giving them the tour. They would bring them to this hall of success that was right outside my office. And as often as possible, I would get up and go and speak to those individuals because I recognize they were me. They were me. They were looking for new opportunities in their life. And we were we were ready and prepared to provide them with that level of support that they needed. Now, some students, they would come to us and they would have their own personal initiative, right? Well, Miss Shepard, I've been involved and I've worked in various professional industries and I've got this. And I'm like, great, I'm here to support you, right? I'm here to give you guidance. And if you need it, to provide feedback on how we can improve, because we all have to recognize we all have areas of improvement. Some might call them weaknesses. I prefer to call them opportunities for improvement. We all have those opportunities, but then there were others who who were just so um, discouraged because of the challenges that they had faced, that they needed that extra level of support. They needed that individual to come alongside of them to really help them to do a self analysis of their personal value proposition and how to present that to potential employers. And so when I think about the correlation, at the end of the day, I'm a people changer, right? I love people. I have a heart for people. I want to see people exceed, their goals and their ambitions and succeed in their in achieving their next level. And when the doors opened for me to provide very similar support, but on the levels of CEOs, I found CEOs are no different than my graduates. The same challenges and the same kickback that I got from my graduates. Oh, Miss Shepard, why do I need to have this portfolio presentation? Do I really have to go through every page? It was same arguments that I would get from my CEOs when talking about their pitch decks. Do I
Oh,
really need
funny.
this page in my pitch deck? Do I and I started seeing this correlation, which allowed me personally to excel in the role of providing strategic support to CEOs because God bless them. CEOs, they also have a fear of rejection. And I think that that has been the greatest eye-opening experience because I too have a fear of rejection. And we can be united in our fear of rejection, but learning how to overcome it and putting I say setting our face as flint and carrying forward and not letting those fears paralyze us. Um, the practice work that I would do with my graduates in their mock interview wasn't really a mock interview. It was a legitimate interview, but it allowed me to critique them and encourage them. And I do the same thing for my CEOs now. When they come to me and they have their presentations, I'm like, you know what? We can add this and we can add this. And this is how you can really drive that message home. And what I see is a shift first in their own mind, right? You have to believe in yourself before you can get anybody to believe in your product. You have to believe in yourself. And you have to be able to back it up, right? One of my favorite questions that I love to ask, well, I have two favorite questions. Number one, tell me about yourself. And because what I'm waiting for is for you to tell me the truth of who you are and what you've accomplished and what you hope to accomplish. And then my second favorite question for my graduates was always, tell me about a time that you had a conflict and what you did to resolve it. And from that question, I could determine your fit for organization
Mm.
because from that you get a myriad of responses, but I've over 13 years of analyzing this, I've broken it down into two categories: those who see that question as time to talk about problems and that's it, versus those who recognize that as an opportunity to talk about the challenges but then promote themselves as being that person who was able to overcome and adapt and share the outcomes. And so category 2 is the one we really want to hire. And as a career development agent, it was my job to then go back to those who were stuck in category 1, teach them to see the fallacy of their thinking and show them how to shift their mindset. So, really, my work has always been about shifting mindsets from focusing on the negative. Yes, problems and challenges occur, but what did you do to resolve it? How did you fix it? And how does that play forward? Shifting mindsets is the most important aspect of success.
And I couldn't agree with you more. I too, even though I see myself as successful, even to this day, there are little micro doubts sitting on my shoulder that I'm trying to kick off here to shift the mindset to, what is possible versus what is not, and all of that stuff in there. But Oh, wow. You are full of inspiration and anything, regardless of where you work, whether it's for profit education or tech, etc. Everything you're saying is so applicable to that leader who is sometimes in a room by themselves. And like you said, it's all about mindset. A quick departure from what you were saying, there's just a couple things that really resonate with me. When you talk about shining a light on one's gifts or skills, again, I'm all about that because sometimes when you're so close to yourself, or so close to others, we just cannot see the gifts and then shining a light on them because we all have gifts to be able to offer. And yeah, some people will dwell on weaknesses. You know what? I'm so over that. I don't want to dwell on my weaknesses anymore. I will hire somebody to take care of my weaknesses. Let me go forth into the world with what my gift is. And the fact that you have a visual of a lamp behind you, this beautiful light, it really resonates with me because, again, that's what I'm all about. Lift up that leader, shine a light on them, build a legacy, etc. So, your words are so inspiring, but I do want to shift a little bit to talk more about the work that you do around strategic workforce development. So, when you start working with a company, what are some of the things that maybe they're challenged with that you are their guide, your partner to help elevate them? And what's the impact of this work when you align with them strategically on workforce development?
So right now, one of the major impacts that I'm or challenges that organizations that I've recognized that they're having is a lack of workforce that is willing to come to work. And that has been a significant challenge, especially since COVID. And how do we attract the right type of people? And how do we build the value of the organization to attract those individuals? How do we ensure that they're the right fit for the role that they're in? And I think a lot of times the first step for me is to really ingrain myself in the organization. So for example, if I may, the work I'm doing right now, I'm providing strategic support to Bradford County in the process of writing their economic development strategic plan. And of course, I'm looking at this as an overarching need, but it all goes back to workforce development because that is one of the things that guides organizations and where they expand to, where they're relocating to is the workforce that's around them, but also what's coming out of the school district because that is going to be their future workforce unless they're recruiting nationally or internationally or have remote opportunities. So a lot of times organizations when they are planning to expand or relocate, they're looking at those school districts, they're looking at the graduates. One of the things that I have found that has been remarkably helpful is for organizations to identify an entry level role that I would say a significant majority must come through, right? For a lot of organizations, this can be like that receptionist role or customer service or something to that aspect, especially if we're talking up to lower level management. Now, C-suite execs and things like that, obviously there's a different route, but I'm talking about workforce here. So, identify that entry level role and then what I would say is an orientation process that um, immerses that individual in all of the departments that they have a potential to have impact on or be impacted by. Because one of the challenges, even going back to the education component, we would bring in employees for instruction, or we would bring in employees for recruitment. But they didn't have an understanding of what it meant to have to place these students. And so they didn't fully see the full picture all the time. In the early stages, that hindered our ability to acquire the right kind of students. Um, and so it plays like all of these things parallel between students and graduates versus employees. If you're bringing somebody into your organization, you want them to have a real understanding of what do we do here? What is our culture? How do things work? How do we optimize efficiencies? And I think having them spend time in other departments builds camaraderie. It breaks down silos. Now, the challenge is everybody has to be on board with those things. So again, that goes back to that initial gap analysis that I like to do with the organizations that I work with, and understanding the existing culture, where it is, where we see our strengths, and where we see the need for improvement, right? Those opportunities for improvement. We have to be willing to be genuine and real and address those areas, because otherwise we risk these recruitment efforts and campaigns to bring in the best employees. We spend thousands and thousands of dollars between recruitment and training. It's estimated that it's about 200% of that annual salary to really recruit and train and get that person to come in. And then employers see them leave in 6 months. Why? Well, a lot of times it's not the money. They might say that because that's the easy out. But the reason why people leave organizations is management and the
Yeah.
culture.
Yeah,
So,
I could really lean into that, because I've been in places where, okay, I'm compensated well, and I've got nice equipment, and I go to my meetings and I do my job. But I'll tell you, over the long haul, if I'm not shown some level of appreciation or acknowledgement, uh, that's an issue. Even if, I'll even say for the top performers, I would say I'm say myself as a top performer, but if you don't get a leadership affirmation or some signal that you're doing the right thing, it's like, okay, I guess nobody's watching. There's no accountability. And people start, leveling down. And ultimately you can only sustain that for so long, and then people leave. And again, it doesn't mean you have to have all kinds of parties or kicking the boxes first thing in the morning. Hey, how you doing? It feels superficial, but I would say I would agree with you, because when I talk about problems in organizations, you could deal with the symptom, give them more money. But if you look at the conditions and where the leadership sits and how often do they interact, and then even the mindset, culture, all of that stuff lands with leadership. It is so much more than just trying to get the sales or getting the results. We have a really a big important role to make sure that we sustain the confidence, the capability, the capacity, for those employees. Because again, to your point, we invest so much money to throw it out, and then they wonder what's going on, what's wrong with the hiring process. No, it falls to the leadership. So,
and a lot of times, I will say another major component where employers could make a shift in their organization is not being afraid to promote people within your organization. Do not hold your employees back. Employees come to work because they're wanting to succeed and grow. And if they feel pigeonholed, they'll move out, right? And so I did have a supervisor, the campus president at Fortis College. He was a fabulous mentor, and he was one who was always about promoting employees, even if he had to help promote them outside of the organization. Because sometimes, we're limited in our organization, but we see the value of this person. I don't want to hold on to you in my own selfishness because you make my company great. I care about you as a person, and I want to promote you as an individual. And you know what? If I have Fortis College on my resume, you have Fortis College on your resume, rising tides raises all ships, right? And so recognizing that promotion of employees, helping your employees create a career plan and a career path trajectory really helps significantly with succession planning, because now okay, Julie, I know you're not going to be here for 10 years. Can we have you for 3? Let's get the most out of you that we can for those 3, and let's build up the most in you that we can for those 3. Let's create a plan to prepare your replacement, because I recognize it's going to take 3 people to do the work that you do. So let's start giving you somebody to mentor now, so that when you're ready for promotion, we're all set. And it doesn't have to be an ugly thing.
oh my God, again, and it's all about leaving your legacy, because again, shine a light on that talent, put them where they should be, give them their wings, kick them out of the nest. But at the same time, they can provide so much value, up, lifting up the next generation or the next people that follow you, and make those roles even greater than you. Oh my God, what an amazing conversation. You exude passion when you talk about this stuff. And I really, really hope listeners, one, just take what you say and translate it into their own situation. And if you can at all change the way you support people, you support the company, and really focusing on the human capital, you're going to be so much better for the long term versus simply focusing on the results and applying more money, energy, etc. Start from the bottom up, start from within. It is going to pay dividends in the end. But I want to give you, Amber, the floor one last time for any last closing thoughts and things you want to say to my audience.
Thank you, Deb, so much for the opportunity to be here. I think um, we all need partners and guidance. And one of the challenges in being in leadership is that we build up a cabinet of advisors around us, and we must be absolutely careful not to create an echo chamber. And so I love the opportunity of coming into an organization and sharing oftentimes a different perspective. Because the more that we can think outside of the box, the more that we can help our organizations grow, the more that we are essentially building into the lives of the community around us. Think about that little girl that grew up on a dirt road. And the work that you're doing in your organization has the power to permanently change that person's life and generations for hundreds of years. I mean, we have the effect, the potential through the butterfly effect to impact our community, our state, our nation for hundreds of years by investing in our employees.
Beautifully said. And I am truly inspired by your caring, your passion, your energy. I just want to say thank you for dropping in on the show, and I want to wish you well and continue success.
Thank you.